Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new ProRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "An Interesting Call Led to a Private Investigator." This story begins almost a year ago. I received a call from an unknown number on my cell phone. It was an automated message to call an 888 number in regards to serving me papers. I knew right away this may have been a collection agency. Googled the number and confirmed it. Now I have to disclose I did have identity theft almost 20 years ago. To this day, I occasionally get calls from collection agencies trying to collect on some debt from 20 plus years ago that was cleared. Now most of the time when I get these calls, I ask for their address to send in a dispute letter including the accompanying data for proof that I had identity theft. Granted, they should not be calling me, but they apologize and I don't get another call. Plus, they usually mail me back and said they closed the account. Well, I go to call this person and I got to say the call was interesting. This woman answered and I gave her my information. She started rattling off a debt that was back in 1995. I let her finish and I told her that I had no knowledge and there was identity theft. And as soon as I said that, she freaked out. She kept saying she knew the debt was mine and I'm going to pay. I kept telling her that I wanted to mail a letter. But she flat out refused. When I told her I knew my rights, she said that I had the right to pay the debt. She then said that she is going to put a lien on my huge pretty house, her words, and she was describing the house to the letter. She also said she is going to put a lien on my Lexus that she sees in the driveway. And she said that my gate in the front won't stop the repossession. She then hung up. Now, I knew better. All she did was get my info from public records and then saw my house on Google Street View. My guess is that she tried to push this intimidation on other people that know better. So far it appeared to be a very disreputable company. I also had phone recordings when I called in. And they were legal as I asked her if phone calls can be recorded for quality control purposes. She said of course. And I said thank you, I'll take that as my consent. I would just let this go and just say this lady was crazy. But I kept getting the automated phone calls and I couldn't block them as they were unknown. I googled the company and I thought they were in Ohio. There were a couple of flags that led me to believe this was that the person who owned this company in Ohio was being indicted with charges as an attorney. I placed a complaint with the Ohio Attorney General. They couldn't find any information on what I was submitting. They did call the phone number I gave them and the Attorney General told me they would stop from calling me. But that is all the Attorney General could do. I also complained to the Federal Consumer Finance Bureau, who is supposed to be looking into these issues. But they blew me off. Well, 3 months later, I called this number. I had an idea of maybe pressing buttons when I called in to see if I could get more information about the company through the interactive voice response. Well, that paid off. As soon as I pressed 0, I got a different company name. I googled the company and got tons of complaints. This led me to the company existing in NY. I complained to the Attorney General of NY with all of my new info. I did quite a bit of research over the next couple of weeks and found out a whole bunch of information, like the owner's name. I found out that the address where the company no longer received mail was at the owner's address, their Facebook account, etc. I then got another one of those unknown phone calls. But this time, it's a different company. I'm sure you get what I am getting at, the company just keeps changing the name, but the parent company still calls. I finally had enough of this. I get a private investigator involved and they were quite satisfied with all the information I had so far. So I let him do his business. Well, he calls me back saying that this company isn't even registered and it's run by this one lady. I find out that the rude lady who I was talking to is the supposed owner, but not running a legitimate business. I got a process server to file a claim in NY. Granted, I think I could have done it where I was at. But I was heading up to that area in NY anyway as I had some family reasonably close. The problem was she was not able to be served. The house which she owned, she was not able to be served at. Either she was not there or was staying somewhere else. Well, my private investigator started sending out friend requests to her and the people in her friends lists. Her friends, and then she accepted the Facebook request. My private investigator found out that she cheated on her boyfriend about a month ago since she posted that crap. The private investigator gave me an idea of trying to reach her boyfriend, and if he can lead us to serve her, I will give him $500. We did that, and sure enough, we were finally able to serve this lady at her parents' house about 20 miles from where she was at. I fly up to NY, and since it's small claims, it's just me and this lady. For some reason, her mother is there too, but she is not representing. I give the judge all of my info I had over the months and how she broke the law. She broke debt collection laws and made threats over the phone. After the judge heard all the trouble I had with these calls and how she hid her identity purposely, the judge gave me the maximum amount of $3,000. In NY, small towns and villages are limited to $3,000. After the case, I heard her mother loudly whispering, "But I heard it, you better hope he doesn't take your house. Your great-grandfather built this with his own bare hands." I was thinking, it would be sweet revenge if I could actually put a lien on the house. Well, lo and behold, I found out the house had a second mortgage attached to it. With the property value of the house, and if it sold, I wouldn't end up getting the lien money since the secondary mortgage was almost as much as the house. I was then contemplating how I was going to get the money from this lady. My private investigator calls me 5 months later and said her house is going into foreclosure. I get a proxy to bid for me. But as in most foreclosure actions, the bank buys it back as an REO. I decided to send in a low ball offer to buy the house a couple of months later. The bank accepted my offer. My guess is that it's a small town and trying to get the right market was an issue. You may be wondering why I even bought this house? Well, here's why. This dumb bunny threatened to put a lien on my house with no merit. Well, guess what? I took her house. It was completely worth it. It didn't cost me too much and I had the money. The house is actually in decent shape, just a little small. Plus it will be a nice summer home when I go to visit my relatives. Oh, and I decided to rub in salt to the wound. I sent a letter to her parents' address letting them know I took the house. I told them that if their daughter wouldn't be in the business of scamming people, they may not have lost the house. I also go to find out that the Attorney General of NY is now investigating this lady. I hope they throw the book at her. Not going to mention the collection agency, but if you stopped getting phone calls from them, you're. The next one is titled, "He was in bed with my girlfriend, so I hit him with a wooden paddle on his behind." So there I was, on my birthday at the stroke of midnight, just given a 3/4 day of paid time off from my eternally crappy job working third shift at a factory. I think to myself, awesome. I'll go home and maybe get a little bo chicka bo www. I mean, I've been dating her for the past 6 years, and I always get a little birthday lovin'. But there's always the chance I won't. No big deal. I walk in the door, all is quiet, which instantly strikes me as kind of strange. She usually watches TV at this time of night. Maybe she just passed out? I think nothing of it. So I am walking back to our bedroom when I hear it. The unmistakable headboard against the wall with slight barely audible womanly moans coming from the bedroom. I promptly freeze. After a few seconds, I quietly sit down on the cold linoleum floor and think to myself, she's cheating on me, on my birthday, in our bed, in the house that I pay rent. What the hell? But there's one thing that everyone who knows me, knows about me. I don't act rashly. Ever. I think things through, and you really don't want to get on my revenge side. It's cold, and it's calculating. I have been referred to as Spock on a number of occasions. So the plan is hatched for instant revenge. She only likes to make love in the dark. I have really good dark vision. She does not. The house is pitch black. I've got this, I mutter to myself. I quietly enter the bedroom, and proceed to head to the always open closet across from the bed, and proceed to grab our wooden studded paddle from. It is everything in my power to hold back my infuriation with the situation. I grab the paddle, and a box that was on top of it falls, making a very loud noise. I crouch down to stay hidden and think to myself, crap, here I am catching her cheating on me and I'm about to be the one that gets caught. But they don't stop. He's a madman on a mission to finish, which he's obviously very close to doing. I get to the end of the bed, and stand there in full batter's swing, ready, waiting for the right moment. It was quite an eternity waiting for a man that is with my girlfriend of 6 years, in my bed, in my house, on my birthday, to finish up. And then it happens. He's done. I instantly realize she's doing this, without protection. I spring out the full swing, now with the added hatred of her not using protection and whack. That blood-curdling wince and then eventual cry was absolute music to my ears. It was a direct hit to the backside. She asks, "What in the hell just happened?" His reply is, "Something just smacked my bottom so hard I think I'm bleeding." This is when I personally think it hit her. She frantically rushes to the side of the bed to flick on the bedside lamp. Click. And there I am, standing there tall and proud. Safety glasses still on, holding what I have now dubbed the meat grinder in hand. Staring down at the both of them with an unholy, unflinching gaze. I am staring a stare of psychic withdrawal inducing soul destruction, unwavering in its intensity. And then I focus my gaze directly into his eyes. Calm as a statue, and officially shut down all emotions at this point. It is now that I realize that he was a man that I've known for years. Not necessarily a friend, but someone who I trusted, and knew I trusted. I have never seen a man get his clothes together and get out the door so fast in my life. Ever. He was gone in an instant. She looks at me. I look at her. And I say the inevitable truth. You know that every single one of my past girlfriends has cheated on me, and you know exactly what that means. I'm dead to you, huh? She replies in a dejected, monotone voice of humility. After you leave tonight, I will not recognize either of your existences if we meet again. I will more than likely never speak to you. While standing there, staring at her the whole time, she gets up, head hanging in shame. Gathers clothes. Gets in her car, and leaves. That's when everything in me just collapses. My heart, my soul, my emotions, my ego, and pride, everything. I proceed to go to the living room, crack a beer, and cry for 8 hours. I'm a man, but I'm only human. The next day her mum calls me up and asks, "What in the hell happened last night?" So I tell her. She bursts out laughing at her daughter's stupidity, and my retaliation, and heads on over for a little bit more of a talk instead of on the phone. The next one is titled, "I kicked him out of the house, he just had his underwear on." I found out around the end of April 2015 that this ex was cheating, once again. Found out by looking through his phone, which he agreed to random checks to after the last incident. I hadn't checked in a while, so he apparently got too comfortable. For some reason, I felt the urge that night to check his phone. We had gotten an apartment together a few months prior that both of our names were on. That night, I looked through his phone and found that he was cheating, yet again, with some random girl he'd met. He was bragging to one of his friends and said, "She knows our relationship is over. We're basically just roommates at this point." As far as I knew, our relationship was going great. I'd even spent hours that same night cooking him dinner and putting a brand new kitchen table together by myself because he was too much of a lazy butt to do it himself and I wanted him to have a nice place to eat for once. After reading these texts, I woke him up and immediately told him to get the hell off as we were done. He started putting on his pants and I said, "Hell no, get off right now with what you have." What did he have on? Tighty whities. His phone was in my name. All of our cars, 3 total, were in my name. And I bought him the majority of his clothing throughout the years. We lived basically on a college campus that had only one gas station which was a mile away. I was also the only one working, so all of our income was mine. I kicked him out, no shoes, no phone, no wallet, no money, no clothes, no car keys. He walked a mile like that to the gas station to call his mum to come get him at 4 a.m. I let him pick all his stuff up, a month later, from the landlord's all boxed up neatly. Immediately turned off the phone that same day and cancelled his cards to my account. He tried with all his might to get me back, stating that he knew I was the right one and he wanted to marry me. I said hell no. I even got him to come clean the entire apartment a few weeks later while I napped after an extremely long day and he groveled. I woke up to tell him to get off again. Not to mention I threatened to take his past domestic violence issues against me to the police, had documentation, if he didn't pay half of the rest of our rent up front since his name was also on the lease, to the tune of $3,000. We live in a state famous for horse racing. And he worked 12 hours a day for multiple days at the track during May, the busiest time in the year for horse racing on the planet, to pay it while I was also there, dressed fabulously, drinking mint juleps. It felt wonderful and I got together with my now husband, who treats me great, the same week that I kicked him out. Best thing I've ever done. Just picturing him walking into a gas station at 4 a.m. to ask to use the phone and call his mommy while naked still makes me giggle like a little girl close to 4 years later. Don't cheat on me, especially not the 5th time around or I'll screw you over, big time. The last one is titled, "He had 4 children and I didn't even know." I thought I was in a slightly tumultuous but overall fun relationship for a year. I had gotten out of a 12-year relationship when I met Slimeball. He was so charming and handsome I thought I won the lottery. He was super pushy about saying, "I love you" first and defining our relationship. He introduced me to his family. His niece started calling me auntie. He tells me about his 3 children and their mothers and tells me about how the mother of his oldest hates him and is keeping him away from the kid. But then things started getting weird. His ex started calling all the time, multiple times a day. They had children together, but the grandmother had custody. I was told, to make it seem normal, that both of them had jobs where they traveled a lot, so they signed legal guardianship over to the grandma to make schooling and emergency issues easier. Then the mum moved down to the city we were living in for work training. She was moving down permanently without the kids. When I asked why the kids weren't coming, I was told they need to stay in the same school. They are 6 and 4. I'd say staying with parents is more important at that age than their peer group. It was weird, but I'm the cool girlfriend and it wasn't my place to tell them where their daughters should live. His work was in the cannabis industry, kind of. He worked with the ex-brother-in-law going to legal states, buying pounds at a time and trafficking it via USPS. So, when he tells me he's going to Oregon, I think nothing of it. After a week in Oregon, a lot of stories aren't adding up, like his phone is always dead even though he carries a power bank with him. Then one of his friends starts posting cuddled up selfies with him. I quickly put 2 and 2 together and dump him for cheating on me with this chick in Oregon. After I dumped him, I made a messy Facebook post on his wall. When the mother of his oldest child sees it and she contacts me and lays out the truth. He never contacts his oldest daughter, even though he has her cell phone. No one is keeping him from her. He owes $20,000 in back child support for her as he has never once made a payment. He moves around a lot and works under the table, so the mother was never able to collect garnishments or anything. He has a huge criminal record, starting with rape he committed at age 15, and then a lifetime of fraud, larceny and drug charges I knew nothing about. His ex, who moved to our city, was his girlfriend of 9 years who was very much still in a relationship with him, and they willingly gave up the 2 children because they preferred to use drugs. He likes heroin, and she likes pills. There is a 4th child. He and the mother conspired to pin the paternity on another poor sap, and it's been 17 years now that this other man has been paying for a kid that is not his. Oh, and I was this slimeball's side chick. His family knew and played along in the lie and included their 10 and 16-year-old children in the lie. His chick in Oregon is actually his star-crossed lover from childhood. And every time they would try to be together, one or the other would end up in jail. The Oregon chick also has criminal record highlights, including criminally negligent homicide from a DUI where she killed her passenger, fraud, larceny, and drug charges. This shocked me, so I paid for a criminal background check, which is how I learned of their records. I profusely thanked the ex for telling me the truth about the situation. I mulled on it for a bit, trying to convince myself to simply consider myself lucky and just walk away with my dignity intact. But then he'd be winning and I knew I had everything in my power to come down on him like Thor's hammer. I gave the ex all of his info, SSN, state ID #S, current and past known addresses. With this, she contacted her state's child support services. He will now have his driver's license revoked and can't get one regardless of which state he moves to until he is current with his past payments. If he ever gets a real job, 25% of his wages will be garnished. He now has a warrant for his arrest in the state his oldest kid lives. He's trying to play house with his new girlfriend and contacted the mother of his oldest to arrange a meeting with his kid and his girlfriend's child. The mother is playing nice and pretending it's a go. He is planning a trip to visit the daughter. He will not see her. At that meeting, he will be seeing the police and they will arrest him for failure to pay, and he won't get out of jail until he pays a sizable chunk of the $20,000 past due plus bail. I gave the ex his info the day before his federal tax refund was set to go out. She was fast enough at getting his info to CSS that they intercepted his full tax refund and now, for the first time, has to pay something for his child. His past due child support is also going on his credit report. I know the name of the business his ex-brother-in-law owns and uses to launder his drug trafficking money, so I dropped a dime to the IRS. So, he's losing his only steady income soon and can't get a job at Walmart due to his criminal record, and if he does manage to find someone that hires without criminal background checks, he will lose 1/4 of his paycheck. I told this story to 2 of my hacker friends and they got into contact with hackers more talented than themselves and are now going to take care of a few more things for me, like finding the guy who was conned into paying for a kid that's not his. Thanks for listening.